Clay and Buck gets going right now. And yes, as promised, Clay and I suffered through the State of the Union address last night with Joe Biden playing the usual Biden cards. One moment, he's just like, guys, he's so friendly and funny and he's grinning. And the next moment, he's basically telling you he wants to destroy the foundational aspects of Western civilization, whatever he can do to appease the radical left. One of my favorite moments, and there are so many, we're going to break them down for you. And also, by the way, we're going to have Jim Jordan coming up here on the bottom of the hour. At is the preposition I'm looking for. Bottom of the hour to talk about, a few things. One, you've got this Twitter hearing going on Capitol Hill. And as I keep saying to everybody, we need to work all this stuff out on the big tech social media side because it's as bad at every platform in terms of the bias and the politicization as it was at Twitter before the Elon takeover. And it's also going to have a major effect on the election, and we need to at least know what's going on at these places. So I think that's important. And then beyond that, we have some other items to get to, other people's reactions and everything going on in the world of politics. Sarah Huckabee Sanders' response to the State of the Union. I will just say I have certain biases, Clay. I like to tell people where I think State of the Union address is in general, and I say this for Republicans too, I think it should just be a statement put out the way it was originally. I don't believe in this pageantry. I think it's kind of odd. I also am not a fan of the response. I think the response always falls flat, whichever party it is, no matter how well you do. And if you do really badly, and there have been some who have done really badly, it can actually hurt. I feel like it never helps. It only hurts. That's my opinion. It's an opinion. You can disagree with it. That's fine. But there was one thread, Clay, last night from Biden that lines up on with a number of things we've been saying in the show. If you had to give a title to the speech, and I know a lot of people probably would give really funny ones, and, the world's most famous dementia patient running wild up there, but you could give the "let's finish the job" line, I think, was the single most apparent, most clear thread that they were pulling through this whole speech. Play clip one.
We've been sent here to finish the job, in my view. Let's finish the job this time. Let's finish the job and make these savings permanent. We got to finish the job. Let's finish the job. Let's finish the job and close the loopholes. Let's finish the job. So let's finish the job. We want to have the best educated workforce. Let's finish the job. Let's finish the job. Let's come together to finish the job on police reform. Let's finish the job and ban these assault weapons.
Two quick things, Clay. One, it reminds me from the Obama era of more work to do. That was always the Obama line. We got more work to do. That's what Obama used to always say. Also, he's running again for re-election. No doubt in my mind. Not that there was before, but that's the whole theory. That's the whole narrative.
Yeah, to me, Buck, that's the story that stands out the most here, is this was the opening argument for Joe Biden 2024. So for everybody out there listening, one of the big topics on this show, Buck, has been, what is Joe Biden going to do? I think it has been the biggest question hanging over the Democrat Party. I think the biggest significance of 2022 not being a landslide for Republicans is it locked in Joe Biden as the nominee. And I think that's a benefit, right? Because I think Biden is a weak candidate, but he is going to run. That's the biggest takeaway. There were two things that stood out to me, I thought, in his argument. We can probably unpack these a little bit as we continue, but I want to just play the audio. One, well, you know what? I want to save this whole the talk, because I think that's like a whole topic we can get into, and it's indefensible the way this narrative has been spun.
You know how they do those audience things, Clay, where people, positive, negative? The way that he talked about both police and then he got into the talk and what he left out of the speech entirely, my blood started to boil. That was starting to fire me up.
That's where I got the angriest. I do think, first, Marjorie Taylor Greene had a white balloon. Maybe they were listening to Clay and Buck. I don't think she was allowed to bring it into the studio. But Biden's basic unwillingness to even discuss China And then I want to play this cut where he just kind of came off unhinged. Now, let me just say this, though. Buck, I thought this was about as well as Biden can do. And I think it's a preview for 2024 because I think this is what they will try to do with him. He will be almost exclusively on a teleprompter. He will do very few call and response, answering questions, having to think on his feet. We know they kept him in the basement for 2020. I think they're going to use, he's the president, he's busy, he can't be out in campaigning, he's trying to finish the job. That's their excuse for why he's not going to be out doing a lot of rallies, why he's going to do relatively few interviews. It is going to be the most scripted presidential campaign that we have ever seen because I think it protects Biden from the worst parts of Biden, which are dementia, which are inability to think on his feet, all of those things. I think this was a sort of audition for what his campaign will look like.
And I got to tell you, watching that speech last night, lining this up with steely, cold calculation in your eyes, what you see, exactly what you laid out, is going to be their plan. And any polls you see between now and Election Day that show, everyone's mad at Biden on this, or everyone knows he's an idiot or he's too old or whatever. He is going to be, and people won't like hearing this, but I do think we need to gear up for this and understand it right away. He's going to be a formidable opponent in re-election, meaning it's going to be close, folks. I know people want to believe there's a wipeout coming his way. There is not a wipeout coming his way. The whole speech last night was buying off different interests, spending more money for people, making sure you're doling out more money to seniors for prescriptions or whatever. Ignore the inflation issue because you're blaming it on Trump anyway. Remember that whole line?
Oh, yeah.
He is running the Democrat playbook. And remember, we are not going to be, assuming it is Joe Biden, I'm in my mind, I'm 90% sure.
It would take, Buck, a health-related collapse for it not to be Joe Biden.
I agree. So that's we're at the 99. I would give someone 10-1 odds at this point if we were betting that Joe Biden will be the nominee. But we're not running, and this is what we learned the hard way in 2020. You're not running against Joe Biden. You are running against the Democrat machine. And it is ruthless, it has a ton of money, and it is formidable. And that is part of what you saw on display last night.
Buck, if you doubt that at all, did you notice when they cut to John Fetterman looking befuddled, sitting in a suit in the crowd there?
The guy has a suit.
Did you
I
miss
was
Fetterman?
amazed.
I mean, it looked like. I couldn't help. I was watching. I got out. I'm in Phoenix, by the way. Love it out here. Appreciate everybody that is listening right now in the Valley of the Sun. This town is fantastic. But I got to my hotel room about 20 minutes before the State of the Union. Flipped it on, sat down, started jotting down notes, watching it. And when they showed Fetterman on the screen, it was just, to me, a perfect approximation and representation of what you're saying, which is Democrats don't care. They don't care about Joe Biden's frailties. They don't care about his clear cognitive decline. And if you question it, they just elected John Fetterman. And when they showed him on the screen, you could clearly tell the dude had no idea, right? He was sitting there in the crowd in his awkward suit, out of his jumpsuit or whatever he usually wears, and he had no earthly idea what was going on in this speech, and that is a perfect representation of what they're going to do with Biden. It's Weekend at Bernie's 2. They already dragged him across the finish line once. They proved that they'll still do it with Fetterman. They didn't care. Remember right at the top, Biden tried to give credit to Chuck Schumer for being the minority leader. Anytime he goes a little bit off script, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not able to keep tabs on things. But when they write it in a teleprompter, he will read it, and that's the entire 2024 campaign.
So there were a few moments where I do think, especially when he started to go a little off script, where we were reminded that this guy, he's the B team, but he's the president. It is a remarkable situation that we all observe here. But when he talked, when he started to do the pandering to the left-wing base stuff, and I know you want to line up the discussion about police and the talk and all that. We're definitely going to spend some time on that because that's important. Because I think after the speech last night, I do believe that two of the biggest vulnerabilities for the Democrats, I think number one, if Republicans know what they're doing, I think the border, everyone realizes the Biden border is an absolute disaster. And the more this unfolds, and there's a price tag attached to it, which you're starting to see. New York City says it's going to cost $4 billion. They got 40,000 migrants. I mean, McAllen, Texas gets like 40,000 migrants a week now. I mean, this is it's wild what's going on. I think on immigration, and I think if the crime message, and honestly, the crime message and just the racial politics of the Democrat Party, the bad faith racial politics of the Democrat Party, I think are a huge vulnerability if Republicans lean into it and talk about it honestly and without concern about the way the left-wing media will portray them. But here is Biden in one of his moments where he's like, we're going to need gas for, like at least another 10 years. Play 4.
Have you noticed Big Oil just reported its profits, record profits? Last year they made $200 billion in the midst of a global energy crisis. I think it's outrageous. Why? They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells, all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade. And that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it.
He knows he sounds like a moron there, and he does sound like a moron there. And can I just add, though, Clay, even before the moronic line, when he's talking, he goes, they didn't invest enough, and they tell me I'm afraid you're going to, do all this crazy stuff. Yeah, that's what the oil companies are responding to, the Democrat lunacy about the Green New Deal.
Yeah, look, the reason why the oil companies have been wildly profitable is two things. One, because obviously oil prices have been inflated because of inflation and everything else that's going on in the country. But two, typically you would have to invest a massive amount of money in future oil and gas production. But the oil companies are essentially being told, as you just heard from Joe Biden there, we're only going to need oil for, the next couple of decades. He said 10 years, maybe a little bit more. Like, the whole thing is crazy. I would bet, I think I tweeted this out during the speech right after he said it, Buck, I would take anybody who is listening to us right now, anyone who is currently alive and listening to us, maybe there's a 10-year-old out there somewhere in the country listening right now, even that 10-year-old, for the rest of his or her life, is going to need oil and gas in this country. I would take the next 70, 80, 90 years of oil and gas is still going to matter in a big way in this country. Maybe sooner or later, 50 or 60 years from now, maybe windmills and solar make a lot more of the overall energy production in this country. All I can tell you is the things that are reliable right now, oil, gas, they ain't clean energy, Buck. There's not a lot of windmills off the coast that are making sure that they can power the energy needs of this country.
And they also, they're so ignorant about the history of the modern energy economy that we have. First of all, there are jokes on Wall Street about how solar has been the next big thing for the last 40 years, right?
Yes.
I mean, you look at people, they're, solar any moment now. I mean, it's, but we've been naturally decarbonizing as a function of technology that is market ready and efficient. We're already moving toward natural gas from oil. We've been moving from coal to oil for a long time. That's already been occurring. Before that, before coal, we were using whale oil, right? I mean, you look at the progression of high carbon fuel is going toward cleaner sources of energy, but it's doing so at the pace of what is reasonable, realistic, and efficient. And they just ignore this. They want to do a great green leap forward that's going to make everybody really much more poor globally and everything less efficient and more expensive. And for what?
Yeah, and when we come back, let's talk about this glaring flaw related to China. We'll play the audio for you. Joe Biden basically pretended China didn't exist in much of this State of the Union address. Also, Jim Jordan scheduled to join us here in about 10 minutes at the bottom of the hour. Congressman from Ohio. We'll hear what he thought of the State of the Union and also get an update on this hearing that they're having right now in the House related to big tech, Twitter, and all the suppression of stories there. All that's still to come. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us this Wednesday. And I want to tell you, Tunnel to Towers Foundation building its Let's Do Good Village in Land O'Lakes, Florida. First of its kind, a community of about 100 homes for Tunnel to Towers program recipients. a Gold Star family, the Thorntons, moved in first. The widow there, Danielle, and her children, Jalen and Kinsley. This was after the death of their husband, father, Robert, a U.S. Army sergeant. Danielle calls the new home a blessing. In the Let's Do Good Village, Gold Star families of fallen first responders and severely injured service members are neighbors, heroes, and families of heroes. They all live in one community so they can help one another heal. Children grow up together and share a common understanding of what they've gone through. They have the kind of support that has meant the world to so many of them. With every mortgage-free home, the foundation makes good on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices of our nation's greatest heroes and what they've done to help our country and our communities. That's why Let Us Do Good Village, we need to make it the first of many communities like it. I'd like for you all out there to join both Buck and myself and donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us, rolling through the Wednesday edition of the program, reacting to Joe Biden's State of the Union last night, which both Buck and myself believe is basically the opening argument for Joe Biden 2024. Barring a major health-related issue, Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. And I just think it's worth noting that we allowed a Chinese spy balloon to float across the entire nation. And Joe Biden spoke within 2 days of having finally essentially shot that spy balloon down over the Atlantic Ocean. Basically said nothing about China during the entirety of the speech, barely mentioned in what was a 72-minute address. And when he did address China, it was totally inconsequential and completely unintelligible. It's like an old man screaming at the clouds. Here's Joe Biden trying to talk about China's leader, Xi Jinping.
Autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one.
I think a lot of them. I think a lot of them would actually. I don't know what. It's the second most powerful economy on the planet. He's an authoritarian who rules with an iron fist. He lives like a billionaire. I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, it was unintelligible what he's even attempting to make. I think he was trying to say, name me someone who has stood up more to him. I think that was the intent, but he didn't deliver it. And I don't know if that was written in the teleprompter or if he just ended up screaming and being nonsensical.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of countries that have leaders that would say, I think Justin Trudeau, if he could, would switch places with Xi tomorrow. You love it.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get exactly how that entire process was playing out even in his brain that we know is clearly addled. Look, tech upgrades don't just happen on iPhones or computer software. They even happen with pillows. We got the MyPillow 2.0, and it's the same patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but also includes a brand new exclusive fabric made with temperature-regulating thread. You will absolutely love it. The MyPillow 2.0, softest, smoothest, coolest pillow you'll ever own. If you don't want it getting snatched up in the middle of the night from you because it's that good, buy as many as you can. Buy one, get one free for a limited time with the promo code Clay and Buck. 100% made in the USA. Pillow gets a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Here's how you get it. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener special square. Get this buy one, get one free offer on the MyPillow 2.0. We just got it in the Travis household. We are loving them. You can enter our name as the promo code Clay and Buck. Buy one, get one free deal. Clay and Buck, MyPillow.com. You can also call 800-792-3269. That's MyPillow 2.0 today.
Some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. So, folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be sponsored. All right.
Starting to sound like the English House of Commons there last night at the State of the Union address. Oh, my good man. Oh, a lot of people. But look, Biden said that Republicans want to cut or just basically end Medicare and Social Security. Clay and I, we talk to legislators. We talk to the right every day. We are of the right. I haven't heard that one. We got somebody who can weigh in on this very directly. Our friend Jim Jordan, congressman from Ohio. Congressman Jordan, what was, I mean, you were there. What do you think? Biden's telling everybody, oh, you guys just want to cut and just, not cut, end, sunset, Social Security and Medicare.
No, it was, I thought Senator Rubio said it best last night. He said it was a bizarre speech, and that everyone knows that's not an accurate statement at all. Social Security is a sacred promise the government's made with the people, and it's the people's money. It's our money. It's the people's money. So yeah, the idea that we're going to get rid of that is just ridiculous. It's a made up straw man kind of thing. But that's kind of what the left does. But so much of it didn't make sense. You know, he says, "Oh, the economy is wonderful." Well, 7 out of 10 Americans think we're on the wrong track. He said that, he's the first to stand up to China. Really? Everyone's talked about this, but it's the first thing that jumped in your mind. You let a balloon fly over the country for a week, and then you say, oh, the we're standing up to China, and it's like it just didn't. None of it fit. He said it's all seems to divide the country. So, and I guess I would just say this: my biggest takeaway, frankly, was Governor Sanders afterwards when she said the real divide in America today is normal versus crazy, and that is so accurate. The crazy positions the left is now taking, I think, is what so many Americans see.
No, I don't think that's a doubt at all. Appreciate you joining us, Jim. You've been on fire. We'll talk about the Twitter hearings here in a moment. But I loved, and I know you were present there, so you didn't necessarily see it, but when Joe Biden started talking about how it was important to go after tax dodgers, tax cheats, there was soon thereafter a cut to Merrick Garland, his attorney general. And I couldn't help but think, wait a minute, your own son owes millions of dollars in back taxes, and yet nobody even mentions. I mean, I don't know about you. I know you've got kids, grandkids, stuff. If I had a son who owed millions of dollars in back taxes, I would be so ashamed and embarrassed to get up and argue that we had to go after tax cheats. Yeah. Yet to me, that was just, I couldn't get past that aspect of his speech.
No, a great takeaway. And then there's the idea that he said, we're going to fix the tax code and we're going to fix the immigration. And I'm like, well, last time I checked, you guys ran everything for 2 years. If you really wanted to, quote, fix anything, you had the White House, you had the Senate, you had the House of Representatives. Why didn't you do it? No, they didn't do it because they created the very problems we have. They want the chaos, the intentionally created chaos that we now see on our border and a host of other things. So, a lot of it just didn't make sense, but it's still. I always say this, regardless of how bad the speech was or how crazy it seemed, it's still the closest thing to pageantry we get in America, and I think there is something to be said for this tradition we have. We don't have the monarchy or anything like that, and I know Buck loves that in England, and you're not as excited about it, Clay, but. It's the other way around. I think actually, if I remember. Oh yeah,
I'm very pro. I admittedly care about the royal family. I follow all the attention. Buck regularly denigrates me. I will mention Buck got married on Saturday.
I basically go to sleep
Carrie.
every night with a metaphorical Gadsden flag, talking about how King George needs to take his hands off my property.
But he's watching The Crown, Congressman, and also he's now married, and his wife also cares about the royal family. So this is just, 2 years from now, Buck's going to be like, can you believe what just happened in the Buckingham Palace? It's just going to happen.
Well, you got to like this show because you guys get into like the kind of eggs and how you're supposed to cook, and you get into the British monarchy and everything else. But last night was our closest thing to that, and it is a special night for the country, like I said, even though the speech left a lot to be desired.
When you're hearing Biden repeat, I think our team said at least 12 times, finish the job. Did this really just sound to you like the template? And I watched some of the opposition after action report, right? I watched some CBS, which is funny. They're just like, Biden is just so brilliant and amazing. It's amusing. But they did talk a lot about how they think this was a template for his re-election campaign. Did you see that? I mean, and if so, what do you think he's going to really try to push on or take action on? I mean, he mentioned, for example, banning assault rifles. I guess he would just try that via executive action because Republicans aren't going to go along with that, right?
No, of course not. I mean, we actually believe in the Second Amendment. Go figure. No, I assume I think this is probably the lead into his, announcement that he's going to run again. I think what he'll try to do is continue to satisfy the left, which now controls his party, but also to try to sound somewhat, like I say, somewhat normal. Again, I thought what Governor Sanders said when she said normal versus crazy. I mean, remember, a year ago, they're talking about we're the party that says guys should compete against girls. We're the party for defunding the police. We're the party that says men can get pregnant. I think you'll probably downplay that. That'd just be my guess over the next year and a half. So I think that was kind of leading into where they're going to want to go with the campaign. But, you guys know the American people are smart. They're going to figure this out. And I just don't think there's a way. I just don't think he gets reelected.
When we come back in the final segment, we're going to play a cut from the hearing that you guys are having right now on Twitter. Explain what's going on there, what, if anything, you guys have learned so far, and what you hope to be able to accomplish with this hearing that's going on right now.
Well, I think they got played when it came to the Hunter Biden. This is what I said in my 5 minutes, because the FBI didn't tell them directly that it was a hack story. The Hunter Biden laptop story didn't tell them that it was a false story. It didn't violate their policies, yet they took it down. And I think they took it down because for weeks they've been meeting with the FBI, and the FBI had been telling them, be on the lookout for hack and dump operations. They were sending them all kinds of messages. They were sending them super secret stuff over the teleporter, the James Bond special communication app that the FBI had. And I think in the end they knew they could play these guys because 99% of them are Democrats. I mean, Elon Musk has told us that. So they got played. And then, of course, 5 days after they take down the Hunter Biden story is when the now famous 51 former intel officials send out their ridiculous letter. And that became the storyline and allowed this story to be shaped and molded in a way that helped the Democrats. I think they were willing participants. And I do think the FBI understood they could make this happen because of all the contact they had, and other government agencies, all the contact they had with Twitter and other social media platforms.
Speaking of Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman, what is the mission that you're talking to your colleagues in the House over the next, let's say, year as we hone in on what is going to be a very contentious election battle? Members of the Republican members of the House are going to try to achieve what?
Pass the bills to fix the problems this administration has created. That's on the border, that's on crime, that's on inflation, that's on energy. And then, of course, do the oversight work that the Constitution requires us to do, to point out the facts and the truth, and then pass legislation to address that. We know that there's attack on the First Amendment. We know government has been weaponized in many ways to go against the very people it's supposed to serve. And then finally, get a handle on this spending issue. We've had record spending, record inflation, record debt in the last 2 years. And the idea that they're going to increase the debt ceiling and not change any behavior is just, again, it's crazy. We're actually normal. We think if you're going to borrow more money, you go to a bank as a small business guy and you say, I need to borrow some money. They say, what's your plan? Show us your plan. Do something. So they at least should have to do a budget, for goodness sake. The Senate hasn't done a budget in I don't know how many years, and we should do some structural changes, some savings before we raise the debt ceiling on the spending side of things. Those are the three things that this Congress, the 118th Congress, I think is all about, and that's what we're going to focus on.
Jim, I'm out in Phoenix right now. Last question for you, the most important as we roll into the weekend.
Yeah.
Chiefs-Eagles, who gets it done, and what happened to your Bengals?
Yeah, well, the Bengals, part of it was the officiating. And you hate to be one of those guys who complains about the officiating because you're always supposed to just win. I learned that in the sport of wrestling. You can't count on what the official is going to do. But after that 4th and 6 throw, down when the Bengals come back and tie the 4th and 6, and they throw it downfield and they're on the 7-yard line, I go in the score. I'm like, they're going to win, and then it didn't happen. So I figured the Chiefs are going to win since they beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But I don't know. Have you picked someone? You going with the Eagles? Have you picked the Eagles?
No, I'm with you. I'm on the Chiefs, and I'm on the under in this game. I can't wait. Sunday Super Bowl out here in Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, have a great time.
Will do.
Congressman, thanks so much. We appreciate you, sir.
You bet. Take care.
There are plenty of nonprofit organizations in this country. We are, after all, the most generous nation there is, measured by our individual contributions each year. One organization is really worthy of your attention right now, though. It's the Preborn Pregnancy Clinics, a nationwide group of people working to help save the lives of unborn children by helping their mothers who are in crisis. When you donate to Preborn, your dollars are directed toward providing ultrasound experiences for those pregnant mothers making a decision on life or abortion. Preborn's team welcomes each mom-to-be with care and compassion. They introduce them to the unborn child that they're carrying through that ultrasound process. And most of the time, that decision leads that mother to choose life for her unborn child. Each ultrasound experience at preborn costs just $28. If you can make a donation in that amount, you'll be helping to help save a life. To date, this organization has saved more than 200,000 babies' lives. That's more than 150 each day. You have this, right? You can do this. You can help. Use your cell phone. Dial pound 250. Say the keyword baby. Pound 250. Say the keyword baby. Preborn is dependent on donations from the pro-life community. That means so many of you listening to this right now can help. Or if you want to donate online, go to preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us, reacting the day after the State of the Union. You just heard from Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. There is a hearing going on right now in the House, one of the benefits of Kevin McCarthy now being the Speaker. Not bad, by the way, to be able to see Nancy Pelosi finally removed from the rostrum there, with Kevin McCarthy sitting over the left shoulder of Joe Biden during the course of that entire address last night. But the House is already on to actual business, and they are conducting a hearing about what both Buck and myself believe is the biggest scandal involving big tech, big government, and the Democrat Party. Makes Watergate looks like jaywalking. And a big part of this was this idea that was seeded by the FBI through Twitter that the Hunter Biden laptop was going to be Russian disinformation. Just not true. It wasn't true because the FBI had this laptop since December of 2019, as you've heard us discuss with Miranda Devine. Yet they were allowing Twitter to receive FBI briefings suggesting that in advance of the 2020 election, there was Russian disinformation coming. One of the people most involved in those situations, Yoel Roth, he's now been fired by Elon Musk at Twitter for being a partisan hack, which he was. Here is Jim Jordan going after him during his 5 minutes as a part of this hearing. I told you we would play it. I think you'll enjoy it. Here it is.
You know what I think happened, Mr. Roth? I think you guys got played. I think you guys wanted to take it deep down. We saw what the chairman put up where you said, everyone in the White House is a fascist. I think you guys wanted it to be taken down. I think you meet with these guys every week. We know that's been established in the Twitter files. You had weekly meetings with Mr. Chan in the run-up to the election. They send you all kinds of emails. They send you documents on the super secret James Bond teleporter. You get information on that. I think you guys wanted to take it down. I think you guys got played by the FBI. And that's the scary part.
It's absolutely true. Look, I've said this all along, Clay, that the people, the 51 former intelligence professionals, some of them, I think more recently had said, well, we left a little wiggle room because we said it bore all the hallmarks of, they're trying to, it's no. You sign your name to something before an election. You are putting your credibility behind it. It was a lie, and they had to know that it was a lie. The whole premise was absurd. One of the ways that a lot of people came to know my work, Clay, and in the Trump era was because of my intelligence background when everyone was talking about the FISA and all this stuff. And I kept telling everybody, from the beginning, their premises about Trump-Russia collusion are lunacy.
Yep.
There would be so much left behind. It would be so obvious to prove, actually, at this point. The whole thing, it never made sense from day one. And the notion that there was some laptop that was left at a Delaware store and it was the Russians had planted this, and somehow this had made its way. That was the crazy idea. Right. But that's why the 51 intelligence professionals were so important in this process, because their purpose was to launder the lie. Their purpose was to light their credibility on fire, to just move the needle a little bit for Biden, to just remind people it's not about Hunter. Well, rather, they wanted people to avoid the reminder that it's not about Hunter. It's about Joe and the connection to corruption. By the way, not, If Hunter was getting a little extra cash from the Cayman Islands or something, I mean, that's where everyone stashes their illicit, the cash. But you know what I'm saying? If he was getting money from some country nobody really cares about, if he was getting consulting fees from Romania, everybody would be like, all right, whatever. It was China and Ukraine that was buying him off. That matters to people.
Yeah, and you're right about the cover. We played the audio for you from the 2020 presidential debate where, again, I don't think Trump was the best advocate for his reelection in the debates. In fact, the last debate, the second one got tossed because of COVID. It was going to be remote, whatever else. Trump had the opportunity, if he were a prosecutor, to really make the case about Biden's corruption, and he didn't really do it. And I bet if you talk to Trump now and you went back and watched, it's Monday morning quarterbacking. It's like when you lose a game, you go back and you say, man, really, on third down, we shouldn't have run that play. I think Trump would go back and look at it and say, yeah, I wasn't the best advocate, and he didn't really press aggressively. Now, to his favor, he did with that 60 Minutes interview with Leslie Stahl, where he was 100% right on everything. And I still, the way you know that the media got all this wrong is, Buck, they're just choosing to pretend that none of this happened, right? They're not covering it. We've got a hearing on the House right now laying out the biggest government-involved censorship of any of our lives. Big tech, big government, Democrat Party, they all colluded to keep you from knowing the truth in advance of the 2020 election. And the same people who published the Pentagon Papers and the same people who published Watergate are at the Washington Post, for instance, pretending that this story doesn't exist because they're not the good guys, because they got snookered, because they blew it.
We had mentioned this, Clay. I think this is really important because something we talk about a lot here is crime and the decay and destruction of major cities across America, all run by Democrats. Without exception, every city that we talk about here is run by Democrats who are allowing, or even in some cases pushing, cities into just being places people are fleeing from. Law enforcement came up last night in the Biden speech, and the talk, which I know you got fired up about the way Biden framed this. I think we should dive into this next.
Yeah, 100%. It's a total lie that he told about policing and kids, and I'm going to tee off next. Welcome in Wednesday edition, Clay Travis Buck Sexton show. We are reacting to the State of the Union. I am out here in Phoenix. It is fabulous, Valley of the Sun. Appreciate all of you who are listening to us out there across this country. I'll be here through Monday. Love it out here. Buck is about to head off on his honeymoon. Early tomorrow morning, you are off across, basically around the world, to go for the honeymoon.
And freedom will come under great assault in my absence, but I will return. Like Douglas MacArthur, I will return. Or I shall
all right,
return,
so
whatever.
there are a lot of things, Buck, that you and I were fired up about from the State of the Union address. And effectively, if you listen to Hour 1, our thanks to Congressman Jim Jordan, who joined us, this was a roadmap for what the 2024 Joe Biden reelection campaign at the age of 82 is going to look like. That was essentially, I think, the purpose of this State of the Union. I would expect at some point in the next month or so, Joe Biden will officially announce. Maybe he'll wait till April. I don't know that it really matters because so far no one is materializing who seems to be willing or able to raise a challenge against him. There are a lot of things that were dishonest. I would say the essence of Joe Biden's claim that is the most dishonest, he started off his speech with this. He said, we've got 14 million new jobs, the most ever. They're not new jobs. People suddenly were able to go back and go to work again. He also says wages are up. That is true, but they are up less than inflation, which is why the vast majority of Americans out there feel like they're in worse financial shape. He continues with this crazy argument that January 6th is the biggest threat to our nation's democracy since the Civil War, overlooking Pearl Harbor, overlooking 9/11. Those are pretty disastrous attacks against this nation's democracy. But one of the things that has taken root as a part of the Democrat base is this idea that police are racist and that particularly black people have to have conversations with their kids about how racist the police are and how they need to behave. And this is just so toxic and so dishonest that it frankly makes my blood boil. And if you didn't hear it, and I know a lot of you were not, Buck and I told you, hey, you don't have to listen, we'll listen for you. But a lot of you may not have heard this. So I want you to be able to hear this for yourself and then we're going to react to it. Can we play, I believe it is cut 6 of Joe Biden talking about the talk. Listen.
Most of us in here have never had to have the talk that brown and black parents have had to have with their children. Bo, Hunter, Ashley, my children, I never had to have the talk with them. I never had to tell them if a police officer pulls you over, turn your interior lights on right away. Don't reach for your license. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Imagine having to worry like that every single time your kid got in a car.
It's a lie. It's a flat-out lie, Buck.
It's a horrible thing that Joe Biden did. But look, Joe Biden is and was entirely dependent, even to win his Democrat primary, on the support of the black community. And so Joe Biden is willing to say whatever he thinks will be most popular with that community on these issues. That is his approach. Joe Biden, he'll pander to any interest group, any ethnic group, anybody out there that he thinks he'll be able to get votes from. And I think that what you see here, you have to remember, first of all, that Biden did not once mention what is the real problem, for example, that we're not talking about when he's talking about the talk or whatever. It's violence. He's warning young black men against police violence, essentially. He's saying you have to be scared. What is the reality that faces young black men in American cities by the overwhelming and obvious numbers? I mean, to the point where it is very statistically significant versus what Biden is talking about, which is statistically almost a 0% chance of happening. We had Heather McDonald on last week. What'd she say? I mean, the most recent year, I think 5 unarmed black men were shot by police. And just to be clear, unarmed does not mean that it was an illegal and immoral shooting. It depends on the circumstance. It can mean that does happen sometimes. But we're a country of 340 million people. About 12 to 14% of the country is black. You're talking about tens of millions of black Americans, and you have had 5, some years 10, who were shot illegally by police in a way that, like we talked about what happened to Tyree. The Tyree Nichols incident was condemned. That was wrong. That is overreach. That is abuse of power. That is police violence. What he didn't mention at all, Clay, is the real statistical threat to young black men, which is violent crime in their communities, which is skyrocketing in areas that are run by Democrats and skyrocketing in response to Soros-funded DAs, the destruction of the criminal justice system from the top down and the middle out, meaning it's now the rank and file DAs in places like New York feel like their jobs are pointless because they can't lock people up and they get prosecuted 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. It's the decision that we need to end the criminal justice system's ability to incarcerate people for long periods of time, even for violent crime. There has been a whole movement among Democrats to make cities less safe, and that is the end result. And it has disproportionately impacted black people, all people, black people disproportionately, and then all people more generally. And for him not to mention what is the Biden crime plan? Apparently his crime plan is blame the cops. That's his crime plan.
Yeah, it's indefensible. And I thought there were a lot of indefensible things, but I don't know a single white parent who is worth his or her salt that isn't telling and wasn't telling their kids for decades, if you get pulled over by a police officer, comply with the police officer, don't make any sudden movements, don't get out of your car, don't make threatening gestures. I'm a parent, Buck. I tell my kids that all the time. And this is what gets me so fired up about this idea. And I bet so many of you out there right now, if you're parents and grandparents and you aren't telling your kids this, then I think you're failing your kids. The overwhelming story that could make police and citizen relationships so much better. And I wish athletes, I wish celebrities, instead of demonizing police, would say this. If a cop tells you to do something, do it. If every single time you follow 100% what a police officer tells you to do, the chances of you having a violent encounter with a police officer are almost zero, whether you're white, black, Asian, or Hispanic. Period.
Let's talk about how we can look at whether it's the border or any issue of human endeavor. When you look at incentives, you have a very good understanding of who's going to do what, and who's going to act in what way. This notion that any police officer is going to seek out, I'm not saying it never happens, but at some point, when you get down to numbers that are so rare that you're going to then pretend it's much more rare, you're engaging in effectively a lie of distortion. And that is what Joe Biden and the Democrats do on these issues. They have lies of distortion. So what happens in the extremely rare circumstance they pretend is incredibly common, and they leave out what is actually quite common and pretend that that's rare. They do this on a whole range of issues. On crime, they do it in a way that is absolutely horrible. And I think that when you see these instances, as you're talking about compliance with law enforcement, you look at the incentives that cops have. What happens to a cop who engages in, especially if they got body cameras on or whatever, they engage in a use of force incident? They're risking their jobs.
Yep.
They're risking their freedom. They're risking their lives, essentially. Now, they're risking their lives in a variety of contexts or a variety of ways. But the idea that cops show up and they go, you know what, I'm just going to engage in a racist murder today because I'm having a bad day is crazy. That is rare to the point of absolute statistical obscurity. But Biden makes it sound like that could happen on any given day. This could happen anytime. They could just decide they're going to throw their life away and harm you or even murder you because an individual is a young black male. That is a lie. It is a lie of distortion, and Biden should be ashamed.
And it's a victim culture ideology, because what it creates is this idea that when you leave your house, you're in danger from police. If we actually had an honest conversation, police are protecting you when you leave your house, whether you're black, brown, Asian, Hispanic, yellow, whatever your skin color is, right? And if you look at the data, if we eliminated every police issue of shootings in America, right? There are about 1,000 deaths from police every year. 75% of them are white, Asian, or Hispanic deaths. Only 25% black. Stuns people when you tell them that actual number. If we eliminated every shooting that occurs of black people by police that leads to death, 99% of black murders would still be happening. So, and who is committing almost all black murders? Other black people. So that requires actual uncomfortable conversation sometimes, right? Like, who is actually the danger to young black men in America? Other young black men, statistically. It ain't police. Police, if you look at the data, overwhelmingly protect young black men from other young black men. But when you create this artificial narrative that police are out there trying to kill people, to your point, Buck, it's a good one. You would have to be a pure imbecile to decide, I want to become a police officer so I can kill minorities. That would literally be one of the dumbest things you could do. First of all, if you're a huge racist and you want to kill people, you can go out and do it, right? I mean, unfortunately, you can. You can kill anybody in this country if you really get focused on it. The idea that you would go through all of the trouble to become a police officer so you could kill people and then risk your life, your freedom, and your reputation forever is frankly not true. Doesn't mean people don't make mistakes, but it does mean this idea that there's intent is a lie.
Well, this is also why the Ferguson situation with Michael Brown and Officer Daryl Scott, if I remember the name correctly, is that right? I'm trying to remember the Ferguson cop. Officer
Wilson, I think it was something Wilson.
Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson. So Darren Wilson shoots and kills Michael Brown, and the whole story is that this cop with no record of abuse or anything, out of nowhere, just guns down this individual. Right. And remember, he was described in the media frequently as, quote, a gentle giant. That's
hands
what
up, don't shoot. The lie was spread widely. A lot of people still believe it.
Executed because of his skin color. To believe that, and this also goes to, unfortunately, collective delusions that the Democrat Party leverages for political advantage. To believe that, you'd have to believe that on that day, Officer Wilson just showed up and decided that he was going to kill somebody.
After years as a cop, too, where he didn't do it.
After years protecting his community and protecting minorities, young black men.
Yep.
After doing that, serving his community for years, he showed up. He said, "You know what? I'm just going to murder this guy today."
Yep.
And this goes to your point about as we know, it was a lie, and even the Obama Justice Department found that it was a lie. Under Eric Holder, they found it was a lie. It was. There were black eyewitnesses to what happened, and they said, yeah, he charged this guy that he's much bigger than the cop. The cop pulls his gun, says, stop, stop. He charges him. You do not actually have an obligation as a police officer, despite Democrat sensibilities, to have someone beat you senseless and hope they don't murder you with your own sidearm. You don't have an obligation to do that. And that goes to basic natural law and natural rights. It's not even about what the criminal justice system necessarily, although obviously that is indicated here as well. What Joe Biden did last night was shameful in a country that has a massive crime increase and directly because of Democrat policies. And the only way this changes is if Republicans speak honestly and truthfully about this. And if they make the case that you know what's going to make young black men overwhelmingly safer in their own communities, in their urban communities across this country, enforcing the law, supporting police, and doing what Republicans believe will bring law and order. That will save lives. It'll save lives. It'll also create a situation where people who are going about their lives in what are now high crime neighborhoods will feel safer in their day to day. Less likely to be robbed, less likely to be, assaulted, less likely to have somebody roll up on them and demand they give them their cell phone or else or whatever. We want everyone to live in that world, in that community where they can actually feel safe walking on their own streets. The Democrat response is abolish police, get rid of it all, complain incessantly about racism and the racism of police officers. It's wrong what they're doing, and it's honestly disgraceful. It's disgraceful that Joe Biden didn't mention crime once last night. Except, did you see the one people that are stealing COVID relief funds? Yeah. Which is, by the way, that's a bad thing to do, but we knew that was inevitable with all the money sloshing around. Those are not the people that you're worried about, pulling a gun out on your grandmother to steal her purse, late at night, okay? It's not the COVID relief fund people. Just saying. If your cell phone service is with AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, you might think you're getting a great deal on your plan, but you're not. I know that because I made the switch from one of those companies to Pure Talk. Instead of paying through the nose, I enjoy savings for the same quality of 5G service. I'm talking about real savings, too. $30 a month for data, text, and phone calls. How do they do it? They use the same nationwide cell phone network of towers, but cut out the middleman like retail stores, and then they can pass on savings to you. Pure Talk is veteran-owned, and their customer service team isn't outsourced. They're all based right here in the USA. They can help you make the switch in about 10 minutes, and you can keep your old phone and phone number, too. Change is hard for people, and Pure Talk understands that, which is why they have a first-month risk-free guarantee. Try it, and if you're not completely happy with your Pure Talk service, you'll get your money back. Support a company who supports you. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless. So Don Lemon still works at CNN. He's made it through. There's been a lot of cuts over there because Donald Trump broke them and then they crumbled. And Jeff Zucker had to leave in disgrace, among many others, because they destroyed what was a Democrat news network and just turned it into left-wing Pravda in America. It was insane. Don Lemon, though, still there. And here he is trashing the New York Post, which we're going to talk about. Play 34.
That's the time that we're in, where facts are sort of flexible. Citing uncredible sources, like citing the New York Post as a credible source and saying that facts are, it's just, I can't believe that we're here.
Moving on.
Anyway, well, not moving on, because that's a big issue when it comes to the American, hold on please with the music. That's a big issue when it comes to the American people. The American people are going to have to suffer through all of this stuff, from election deniers to people who don't believe in facts. We don't have a shared reality, and now it's taken center stage to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, an election denier, a conspiracy theorist, a QAnon.
Can I just? I want to jump in here. We had the fact that the New York Post got the biggest story attributed to it right in the face, Clay, of all the lib media lying about it with the Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah, and the reason why Don Lemon is going off here on CNN, on the New York Post, is because it appears they accurately reported on him that he has been an awful co-host and has been going off on Caitlin Collins, one of his two female co-hosts there. And so he's fired up at the New York Post, not because of their Hunter Biden story, which was 100% correct, but it sounds like because of their story about his behavior inside of CNN, which, Buck, a lot of people out there say ain't exactly the best.
Yeah. I don't. To borrow from Biden, I don't want to ruin Caitlin's reputation, but I like Caitlin. She's a nice lady, actually. Just saying. Gun owners, let me introduce you to a new way of training and keeping your skills sharp. It's called the Mantis X system. Look, I was just in the gun store yesterday. I was picking up some ammo, and wow, it is expensive. So how can you keep your skills sharp so the next time you get out to the range, you are putting those rounds down range with efficiency, my friends? The Mantis X system, it lets you train at home. It actually connects via Bluetooth, and then you can get real-time data and accuracy on your shooting that you're doing at home. This is not an occasional, it's not to say rather that the occasional range visit shouldn't happen. Of course it should, but you'll get more out of it with dry fire practice at home. This is why you need the Mantis X system. 94% of shooters improve within 20 minutes of using the Mantis X. I've got mine at home. I'm using it. Use yours today. Get it at mantisx.com. That's MANTIS X.com, mantisx.com.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, Wednesday edition of the program. We're going to talk State of the Union some more at the next hour to close out the show in the third hour. 800-282-2882 if you want to weigh in on the topics we've been discussing so far. Maybe we'll take some of your calls at the end of this hour. But, Buck, there is also a hearing going on right now associated with Twitter censorship of the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. We talked with Congressman Jim Jordan in the first hour, and it's amazing how much direct and clear lying is still a part of the Democrat game plan on this story, even as outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News have all confirmed that the laptop is real, even as Hunter Biden's own lawyers came out and said before backtracking, hey, we want there to be prosecutions associated with the leaking of this information because in theory that private information is real. There has yet to be any credible argument that this is not real in any way in the past couple of years. Yet AOC is still carrying the Biden administration lies. So, Buck, I see this as one of two things. Either AOC is so dumb, she actually doesn't know what the evidence reflects. Could be true. Or she is intentionally lying to still try and help protect the Bidens and claim that this is an alleged story with no basis in truth. Let's listen to the audio.
The New York Post first reported in October 2020 that it had obtained contents of a laptop computer allegedly owned by Joe Biden's son Hunter. There was an immediate roadblock faced by other news outlets that hoped to corroborate reporting, as many did. The newspaper wasn't sharing what it obtained. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset. I believe that political operatives who sought to inject explosive disinformation with the Washington Post couldn't get away with it, and now they're livid.
And she's delusional. Look, she's not very bright. I mean, we know that.
What do you think it is? Do you think she's not smart enough to know the truth, or do you think she's intentionally lying here?
I think it's an absolutely a combination of not being very bright and also being delusional about, you know, look, people, no one ever wants to believe they're wrong. This is a basic human thing, right? You don't want to believe you're wrong, and you certainly don't want to believe you were fooled. But in this context, I don't think that she really believes that this was fake. She's trying to come up with some narrative that sounds plausible for why things happened the way that they did. Let me just point out, when she says with no corroboration, Twitter explicitly blocked it because they said it was hacked materials.
Yeah.
Meaning that there were materials. The report was, we have this thing. This thing, the laptop, says the following things. And then Twitter goes, oh, well, clearly they obtained that laptop and those materials illicitly, and we have some policy. And as we now know, thank you, Elon, that was all an after-the-fact justification for shut this down. This could cost Democrats the election. That is it, okay? And yeah, you can argue that that's cheating. You can say it's not illegal, but it's cheating. It is. That's just reality. So that's what they did. And so when people say, "Oh, do you think that there was cheating in the 2020 election?" Yeah, of course. Of course there was cheating. And there was other cheating that you could point to as well. But in this context, the entirety of the Democrat-aligned corporate media, the legacy media, decided that this was in the interest of the candidate they wanted to win. And then everything else was just built around that. And AOC, look, it's unfortunate. There are people, Clay, on the left, and there are Democrats, whom I disagree with, but I will at least admit that their followers and their listeners are, pretty smart, pretty high IQ. And people who think that AOC is a brilliant political mind are just not very bright themselves. Yeah. And so it's really hard to know when she's pandering or when she's just being herself, because the people that think AOC is speaking truth to power, not very bright.
I was talking to a buddy the other day, and he made the case, and I think it's really kind of fascinating to think about. I think it's clear, if you watch the State of the Union, I saw one of your tweets, Buck, where you were talking about just how old so many of the people that are ruling this country, that are leading us, are. It used to be, if it was the 1960s or the 1950s or the 1970s, the difference between what a congressman made and what someone who was super successful in their profession made was not that extreme. And so maybe you got a higher quality of person who was interested in running for political office. Buck, if you're making, I don't know what the salary is, $175,000 a year as a congressman, that's a good living, right? There are lots of years in my life where I would have been very happy to make $175,000. But if you are a highly successful person in business or finance, or you are a lawyer or a doctor or an architect, someone who is highly educated, and you are successful at your profession, you're making orders of magnitude often more than what a congressperson would make or a senator would make. And so I think the people that we're drawing in to take these professions are by and large becoming worse and worse, because a lot of people say, wait a minute, I can make $500,000 a year working as a lawyer in this town, or I can go risk it all to make $175,000. I'd rather just stay a lawyer. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are involved in politics, and I think AOC is a good example of this, that wouldn't be that successful in other fabrics of life. Now, there are exceptions, right? You have older guys and girls who have full careers and then decide, hey, I've made enough money, I want to go into politics now. Trump is a good example of that. Trump, I mean, remember when we had him on with us at Bedminster, Buck, Trump pointed out, hey, deciding to get involved in politics cost me tons of money, because suddenly he's not able to make as much money in business once he got into politics, but he had enough that he could afford to do it. I think there are a lot of really not very intelligent, not very talented people who would otherwise not be able to succeed very well in many facets of life who now go into politics. I think AOC is an example. I think Joe Biden is an example. I mean, would you trust Joe Biden? Joe Biden couldn't do a single job on our radio show. He's the leader of the free world. He's the leader of the United States, commander-in-chief. He could not work on the Clay and Buck radio show and do any job here. Do you think if you're listening to us right now and you work out in the field right now, is there any job that Joe Biden could do at your place of business? The answer is probably not. He's been in government for 50 years. I think we have a lot of people that are not the best among us who are leading us right now. I think it's getting worse and worse.
I mean, it's also true within a lot of the bureaucracy now, because why would you go work for the federal bureaucracy unless, there are some people, and I'm not including the military in this. I'm talking about, the bureaucrat stuff.
Yeah.
Department of Agriculture. I'm talking, the FBI, CIA, whatever, these different places. If you really, really believe in the mission, okay. And there are people whom that is the case. And, while we do criticize
that was you when you started. I mean,
yes.
You went in because you were like, I desperately care after 9/11. I want to go try to help the country.
I turned down offers in investment banking that would have paid me 4 times as much coming out of college right away as what the CIA paid me. That is reality, right? I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a Wall Street guy. I want to try to help find Osama bin Laden, to get justice for my country and hunt down and help our door kickers hunt down every Al-Qaeda piece of trash that we could. That was it. I was like, sign me up. Let's go. That was my decision. That's what I want to do. My parents, God bless them, were like, we get it. We're Americans. We're New Yorkers. Go get them. But, for a lot of people now, when you add into it the politics of these institutions, the bureaucratic sloth, the red tape, the nonsense, a lot of the frustrations day to day, and the limitations on salary, which are inherent in the bureaucracy, it's getting really hard. People talk about it's hard to recruit the best for different police jobs. And by the way, that's also, I'm just going to say, that's depends. If you go out into Suffolk County in Long Island, for example, I think the starting salary there for police is like 120. Okay.
Wow.
And
I didn't know
it's
that.
Yeah, and it's really tough to get those jobs. If you're talking about getting a job as a patrol officer in St. Louis, Missouri right now, I think that's going to be
or
tough,
Minneapolis
tough
where they
recruiting.
can't hire anybody. I mean, people
Exactly.
are making decisions to go to places that are better environments because of how nasty it's gotten. But it is an interesting argument because the gap between being a really successful member of the professional class in 1970 and 1980 is nowhere near as big as the gap is in the 2020s. And that doesn't even factor in, as we come up on all of this era. Buck, it doesn't even factor in how nasty politics is, right? So you can have a job, make a lot more money, and nobody comes after you personally and looks at every single iota of your past life and tries to destroy you, and you make a lot more money, or you can go into politics. And I think, again, this is why I think there was a lot of appeal to Trump, and I think there still is. There's a great demand out there for people who are wealthy, like Trump was, that are not capable of being captured by special interests because they don't need the money of doing the job. And I think the AOCs of the world are the exact opposite of that. And I don't think, first of all, she's willfully blind if she isn't aware of how much the New York Post story is true. I think she's probably guilty of not much intellectual curiosity. And also, again, as I've said for a while, she's an Instagram influencer who happened to get elected to Congress. But no harm on Instagram influencers, but you ain't learning a lot by clicking on their profiles.
I'm just going to say, though, I think she could be drawn away from politics because she could, very easily become a she could start a podcast and go to MSNBC as a contributor, maybe get her own show. She'll be a millionaire very quickly when she does that. That's reality for her. If she stays, I think she's going to run for president one day, Clay. I'm just telling you, man. And I know people say that would never happen. Why? Because she's not smart enough? Joe Biden is president. Joe Biden.
This all ended when Fetterman got elected to me. Again, they had that blank look where they flipped to him in the stands. If they can elect Fetterman, they can elect anyone.
I think the Fetterman thing, we let's not sleep on that, everybody. The Fetterman situation was an important wake-up call to the Republican electorate, which is that the Democrats will elect anybody. If they have the machinery in place, they don't care. They will elect somebody who is physically and mentally incapable of doing the job. They don't care as long as all those votes go Democrat. Doesn't matter.
That's right. Look, a lot of you in Austin, Texas have been dealing with your power being out for a long time. Super frustrating. Ice storm came through. It happens. So many different unexpected outcomes can occur, which could lead to you needing insurance. It's why you have car insurance. It's why you have health insurance. It's why you have home insurance. It's why you have so many things out there as a little bit of a safety net in the event that bad things happen in your life. Do you have food insurance? Have you gone out and bought and brought into your home the thing that we have done, which is My Patriot Supply? You can get hooked up right now. These things will last for decades. 3-month emergency food kit packed with tasty meals, over 2,000 calories per day in the Travis Pantry right now. At my home, we have one for each of my sons and one for me and my wife, all 5 of these My Patriot Supply food preparedness kits right there. They will last for years. We have food security in the Travis household. Right now, you get $200 in free survival gear with each kit you order. These products will save the day when crisis comes. Self-reliance, always a good move on your part, especially in this case. Here's how you do it. Go to mypatriotsupply.com, get $200 worth of free survival essentials with your 3-month emergency food kit. Everything's in stock, ready to go, free shipping, mypatriotsupply.com. Before the next disaster strikes, take care of your family. 3 months of food in each kit. mypatriotsupply.com. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We are rolling through the Wednesday edition of the program. Buck Sexton leaving on his honeymoon tomorrow. We got an hour for you. We've got some good topics to discuss, including more flare-ups in the Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis battle.
It's gonna get ugly, folks.
I think
it's gonna get ugly. Probably very ugly. Probably the most ugly of all the ugliness. Yep.
We will discuss that in the next hour, as well as more reaction to the State of the Union. But some of you wanted to weigh in with some of the topics that we've already had. Mike in Murfreesboro, what you got for us?
Yeah, Clay and Buck, hi, how are you doing? I'm actually asking a question about something you alluded to when you talked about the talk being a lie, and then you talked about giving a talk to your sons about compliance with police. What I want to know is what the lie actually is, or if it's just
Joe Biden said, thanks for the call. Joe Biden said, Mike, that white parents.
Can I just point out, Mike called in and said he is African American, and so he wanted us to address this.
So Joe Biden said that white parents don't talk with their kids. They don't have a talk about how to respond to police when they are interacting with police. I am a white parent. I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old. I've been talking with them for years about the fact of what exactly they should do if they get pulled over by police. I've said it on this show. I think every parent and grandparent, regardless of race, should tell every kid out there, here's how to react when you get pulled over by the police. Comply, avoid creating any sort of accelerant in this situation, which could lead to more violence. So when Joe Biden says, I didn't talk to any of my kids, I think that is a lie. I think the vast majority, in fact, I don't know any white parents out there that aren't talking to their kids about police. The biggest lie, however, of that is that people of color are in danger from police. That is not statistically true. And in fact, it further pollutes the relationship between police and the citizens they try to protect. So I think we have to call it out when I think it's victim culture, and I think it is trying to blame police for issues of violence in our country, which is not accurate.
You know, if you were to ask any cop of any gender or race, when somebody starts speaking to you and they are responding in a calm, direct way and either saying officer or sir or ma'am, do you think that this is going to be a professional and certainly threat-free exchange? They're going to say yes. They can usually tell right away.
Yes.
And I know this because people are like, how do I know? Because I used to do surveillance with cops, sitting in cars in New York, part of the NYPD Intelligence Division. I spent a lot of time working alongside cops because of my counterterrorism background. And they'll tell you the same thing. They know, they make a determination. And by the way, people who say they shouldn't make this determination don't live in reality. In every exchange, regardless of a person's color, regardless of any other, they're just thinking, is this individual I'm interacting with possibly a threat to me? So when somebody, their first interaction with police, when the police come up to the car door, for example, is, what the bleep do you think you're, or I didn't do anything wrong, and they start getting aggressive right away, the cops are going to change their posture in that interaction. Now, it doesn't, of course, justify force or anything, but it's going to escalate things.
Yes.
If to the point of the talk that Clay's making is everybody should understand that your chance of having a violent interaction with law enforcement, if you are polite and if you are responsive to their requests, is almost zero.
Yes.
It is almost zero. And we're talking about millions and millions of police-civilian interactions.
Yeah, and what I always say, too, Buck, is, look, I'm a lawyer. I tell my kids this, too. Even if you're not a lawyer, tell your kids this. If your rights are violated by police, you can go to court and get those rights addressed and defended. What you can't do is, when something goes violent, you can't unwind that. You can't unring that bell. Comply with police, period.
Third hour of Clay and Buck begins right now, everybody. Thank you for being with us. And I wanted to tell you, if you're listening to us on one of our phenomenal affiliate stations all across the country, please also join us on the Clay and Buck podcast feed. We are putting deep dive interviews in there. Winners and Losers, a podcast that Clay does that you will very much enjoy, goes into that feed. I'm doing Buck Sexton Show deep dives with a whole range of folks. David Marcus, Carol Markowitz, talked to Chef Andrew Gruel. That was really fun, learning about some of his cooking tips and also running a restaurant business as a conservative in America today. But you won't see any of that. None of that's on the radio show. That's only going to be in the Clay and Buck feed. So the iHeart app, a great place to subscribe, or the Apple Podcast Store, go subscribe to the Clay, Travis, and Buck Sexton show feed. Now, we had some interesting reactions that I want, so we've reacted. Clay and I started off the show talking about what we thought of from Biden's speech. And something that I'm gonna keep saying it because I think it's so important to learn lessons. And yeah, Biden is decrepit and too old and unimpressive and lies and the Hunter Biden thing and all this. And inflation was very high, supply chain issues. Somehow the Democrats managed to stave off a red wave. We've talked about why, but in 2022. 2024, we are running again. First of all, Biden's speech, I think last night at the State of the Union makes it clear that he is going to be the Democrat nominee. There's no smooth way for them to move him aside. So barring some kind of major health issue, he's going to be the one. I'm sorry, Wins and Losses podcast. Pardon me, Clay. Wins and Losses. Winners and Losers is the famous bar in Nashville, to be fair, right? So,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be Winners and Losers, great bars in Nashville, in Midtown. But yes, there is a lot of great, unique, original content on the Clay and Buck podcast feed that tens of millions of you are downloading every single month, certainly throughout the year. Go subscribe, make sure you don't miss anything.
And we also are going to start doing some appearances on some of our favorite people's podcasts in 2023. We'll try to get there even in person. That's always fun. So that all said, Biden last night had his usual, amen corner, the people who support him and everything else afterwards. But this one, I just couldn't believe this. Rachel Maddow, the $30 million MSNBC host, $30 million a year.
1 day a week for her show now, Buck. I think she's only on Monday, usually.
Because she fights really hard for the middle class, guys. That's what it's all about. She fights for the middle class while she flies private everywhere. Anyway, sure she does. But here she is complaining. You know what? I just want you to hear it. Play 10.
1,000 people in that room. I have to say, I know this is wrong, but it does give me the oogs a little bit to see the average age in that room and then to see precisely one mask in the entire room. I mean, I realize that we're in a different position with the COVID pandemic, but these are a lot of very important, very powerful, for the most part, very old people. And there's 1,000 of them in the room, and they're going to be in there screaming together for several hours. And Bernie Sanders is the only mask that I've seen.
So Bernie looked ridiculous in his mask. He's definitely going after the far left wing. This is to me, though, troubling. And let me explain why, Buck. We were earlier making fun of AOC, and certainly we go after the people on The View. Whatever you think of Rachel Maddow, she's very intelligent, right? Now, we may disagree on politics. I think she was among the worst on Russia collusion, everything else. Buck, do you think that she just doesn't know any of the studies on masks? Is she willfully ignoring all of it? Because she's smart enough to know that masks are worthless, right? Like, there are some people out there, like Joy Behar's too dumb to be able to understand that masks are worthless. Like, she's not intelligent enough to even do the research. Rachel Maddow is. So what is going on here that of all the things you could react to on the State of the Union, she's upset that only Bernie Sanders is in a mask?
I think this is interesting, actually, because in the last hour, I mentioned, and we were talking about how there are some people on the left who I just assume that their followers are not very bright.
Yeah.
That's not true. Of course, everyone's going to have some smart people who like them for whatever reason. But generally speaking, there's a difference in the cognitive abilities of different audiences out there on the left. Rachel Maddow, you're going to have some of the highest IQ leftists you'll find are going to be.
She's a Rhodes Scholar, I think, right? Like, she's legitimately a smart person.
Okay. She is. The Rhodes Scholar thing is,
I get it.
I've known plenty of
an
Rhodes
arbitrary
Scholars.
thing. But my point on this is she's way too smart to have watched the State of the Union and say, oh, there's not enough masks.
So, right. But so this is where I think you get a reminder. And her audience is going to be more the high IQ libs. And look, they're plenty, it's an equal distribution on left and right when you look at the IQ averages. So that's just going to be the reality. But she, and I think so many others, Clay, are examples of Fauciism as a religious belief, which is why the facts are impenetrable. It actually masking became a faith-based tradition for libs. And that's why it is still unshakable for some of them, because, well, what do you mean? This is what the good people do. And nothing will penetrate that. There's no way to get them to see it otherwise, because remember, to walk away from that would be to admit that they were fooled and not as smart as they thought they were, which is this is why it's unfalsifiable.
And all of the people that they hated and made fun of were actually smarter and more intelligent in the way they responded.
I mean, in their minds, you have to remember the MAGA hat wearing, pickup truck driving, redneck who's like, I don't think masks work. They were right.
Yes.
Okay, so they were right. They figured it out. They were correct. And in the leftist mind, that's impossible. How could they have known and we didn't know? That's the part of it that doesn't make any sense.
And I guess when I see that Rachel Maddow reaction, you saw Bernie.
It's hilarious that Bernie's wearing a mask. It's hilarious. Come on.
I mean, his hair is going every which direction. He is, again, smart guy. I think Bernie Sanders is smart. I think he is a committed, communist, basically. And
Clay,
it was perfect that he had that on.
He honeymooned
Yes.
in the Soviet Union. That is true, everybody. That is not a joke, although it is a joke just by nature of it being true. Honeymooned in the Soviet Union.
How many people do you think without connections to Russia? What do you think? Well, you can't get there now, obviously, because of the war with Ukraine. But you're going on your honeymoon tomorrow. If you had said to Carrie, hey, some people want to go to South Pacific. Some people want to go to the beach. I want to go to Russia for our honeymoon. Like,
but
pretend that Ukraine
Russia.
hadn't happened. Yeah.
It was the Soviet Union.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I
mean, at least Russia now, you can get a fancy tracksuit and some gold chains and some Chanel bags and whatever, right?
But you used to before all the brands left. But you got to. Not only did he go there, Buck, he traveled around and gave speeches about how the Soviet Union was superior to the United States, and they used those speeches as evidence of propaganda in their country for why the West, and the United States in particular, was going to lose the Cold War. And now he is the lion of the left on these issues.
And by the way, over at CNN, so Rachel Maddow noticed that it said only one mask on Bernie Sanders at this point. It's like I said, it's unfalsifiable. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. I actually think we're at a point now where even Fauci could say the mask doesn't really work. And there would still be people who are like, well, they're making Fauci say that.
Yes.
It's become like the conspiratorial mind that refuses to accept new facts or new data. Wolf Blitzer, though, who's, he's been in the game a long time. Guy's got to be in his 60s or 70s now, right?
He's been there forever.
He is the, the immovable guy at CNN. He's been there, I think, almost from day one, if not close to it. Here he is saying that in 36 years in the U.S. Senate and now his time as president, that this was Biden's best speech. Play 15.
I've heard President Biden, going back to his 36 years in the U.S. Senate, deliver a lot of speeches over the years. I've covered him for many, many years. I've gotten to know him a bit. I think this was the best speech I have ever heard him deliver. He was passionate. It was extremely well written. He clearly had practiced it, and he delivered a powerful message to the American people.
Look, I think that Biden has always been a mediocrity. I think he's been saying the same things. His whole, middle class, we're going to jobs, middle class, aspirational, middle class. It's all the same thing from him, always has been. This pretense that he is a great champion of the working folks. Got to cut off got to be apostrophes, working folks. And that's been his shtick for longer than I've been alive. I mean, you've been around longer, so you could weigh in on that. But that's been his shtick for the whole time. And I just am here to remind everybody, unfortunately, it is effective. There are a lot of low information voters who think that Joe Biden really cares about them just because he talks about middle class and finishing the job and all that stuff.
I think two things. One, to Wolf Blitzer's points, the standard for Joe Biden is so low now that if he doesn't collapse while speaking, and he doesn't get lost. I mean, he slurred throughout this entire speech. He regularly put together phrases that made no sense. The standard for what is good for him, even what is acceptable for him, is so low that it's almost impossible not to exceed it. This is important because that is going to help him in the 2024 campaign, in the debates. The standard for what Joe Biden is going to have to accomplish in the presidential debates on the campaign trail is basically going to be don't fall down climbing up and down the stairs and just be a little bit better than John Fetterman's disastrous performance. That's one. Two, I jotted this down while he was speaking, Buck, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm glad you brought it up. How weird is it that Joe Biden still tells stories about when he was a kid sitting around the kitchen table when he's going on 90 now? Like, at some point, in an effort to connect with the larger American public, whatever conversations Joe Biden had with his mom and dad in 1930 don't really matter that much, or 1940 or whatever the heck year it was, 1945, don't really matter very much in 2020, right? It makes me think this guy is so old every time he says, we used to sit around the kitchen table. Joe Biden has no idea what modern American life is like. And I feel like there have to be many people out there listening when he tells stories about his childhood that think to themselves, my goodness, it just reinforces how old that he is, that he's talking about things that were going on legitimately in the 1940s and the early 1950s as if it's evidence of what is going on today in 2023.
And yet I just think we all need to be prepared for Joe Biden, as absurd as it is going to be a difficult incumbent president to beat. A lot of people won't say that to you right now. A lot of people out there are going to say, oh, yeah, we got him. We got him right where we want him. I learned lessons from what we see and from history and what we saw in the 2022 election. You are not running for any, whether it's Trump or DeSantis or whomever, they are not running against Joe Biden. They are running against the Democrat apparatus.
Yep.
And it has more money than we do, and it lies all the time, and it is ruthless. And he is the sitting president, so there's the incumbency advantage to top all of that off. So we have our work cut out for, look, I think we can obviously win. I think Biden's beatable. I'm just saying, and this, oh, yeah, he's such a clown. He's such an idiot. Yeah, that's true, so we'll say it. But we have no illusions here that it's not going to be easy to beat this guy running, whether it's Trump or DeSantis. It's not going to be, people say, oh, but Trump won. For the people who say Trump won the last time, even if that were true, it was very close, right? I mean, this was not a big election no matter how you slice it.
20,000 votes, any way that you want to slice it. Both parties are starting with 20-ish states that they basically have in their repertoire already. It's going to be a real challenge no matter what. And again, I think that what Biden did last night was set the table for what his 2024 campaign will look like.
Clay, I think you could say 2024 could be a Donnybrook.
I think that's fair.
I like to use that one now,
It's a great
I like to use that word. Thank you. Look, it wasn't long ago that I was buying a home and applying for a mortgage, only to find out that my online identity had actually been hijacked by somebody who had racked up charges on my name. It's a true story. Until I could get that solved and fixed, guess what? I had to put a hold on the whole mortgage situation. Thank goodness for the restoration experts at LifeLock. They know just how to help victims of identity theft. My own circumstances were pretty mild in comparison to the kind of stuff they encounter every day, but man, it was still really annoying. Imagine you're me. LifeLock's online identity theft protection starts with them scanning the web, reviewing billions of transactions and new account openings every week. That's where they detect unusual amounts of activity for you that might suggest a problem. They alert you and determine if there's a problem in conjunction with you. And if you do become a victim of identity theft, they'll assign a restoration specialist like they did with me. It was such a time saver, so worthwhile, made the problem go away, basically. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but it's easy to protect yourself with LifeLock. Join now, save 25% off your first year with promo code BUCK. Head to LifeLock.com and use promo code BUCK for 25% off. That's LifeLock.com.
Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, rolling through the Wednesday edition of the program. Appreciate all of you listening to us out there. We got Trump DeSantis ongoing battle. Buck, late last night, Donald Trump on Truth Social posted photos of Ron DeSantis, allegedly, from a time when DeSantis was teaching in a Georgia private school and supposedly was at parties with those high school students. This is 22, 23-year-old Ron DeSantis in these photos, allegedly. Trump has labeled Ron DeSantis as a groomer on Truth Social. We told you it was going to get nasty between these two. Of course, DeSantis has not yet announced. He was asked, DeSantis was, about these allegations from Trump. Here is what DeSantis said in that press availability today.
I face defamatory stuff every single day I've been governor. It just goes with the territory. You got to have a thick skin. It's also just practically speaking, I would not take time out of being governor to be fighting lawsuits. It's just not practical in terms of what we're doing. And I'd also just say this. I spend my time delivering results for the people of Florida and fighting against Joe Biden. That's how I spend my time. I don't spend my time trying to smear other Republicans.
I think, look, this is going to get very ugly. Ron DeSantis as a teacher in a photo with students, which is the allegation here, that is there's nothing he's doing. It is just like, what is exactly, I guess he could, their claim could be that, he could have called the cops if they were drinking beers. It was
a boarding school. It's a photo. We don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah.
And it was supposedly after the school year ended.
But so he wasn't policing their underage drinking. I mean, is that really, because the groomer allegation would be that there was some kind of sexual impropriety. There is zero evidence for that.
Also,
just gonna say there's zero evidence for that.
What I would say here is DeSantis eventually is going to have to decide and announce I think the roadmap he may follow on this, Buck, and we'll talk about it a little bit when we come back. I think the person who has been most successful being attacked by Donald Trump and using it to his advantage in the entire Republican Party is Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. He won a landslide. He smoked everybody that Trump endorsed in Georgia. It sounds to me, and we'll talk about this when we come back, like DeSantis is embracing that game plan with his answer so far. Business owners receiving tax refunds from the IRS in a little-known program. If your business has 5 or more employees, made it through COVID, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. Not a loan, no payback. It's a refund of your taxes. How do you get your business this refund money? Go to getrefunds.com. Their tax attorneys are specialists in a little-known payroll tax refund program. They do all the work, no charges up front, just share a percentage of the cash they get back with you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, even those that had increases in sales. Team at GetRefunds.com has already returned over $1 billion to businesses. They can help you as well. Here's how you do it. Go to GetRefunds.com, click on Qualify Me, answer a few questions. Payroll tax refund only available for a limited amount of time. Don't miss out. GetRefunds.com. No risk, high reward. GetRefunds.com.
Here's the real State of the Union. Over the past 2 years under Biden, millions and millions of illegal aliens from 160 different countries have stormed across our southern border. Drug cartels are now raking in billions of dollars from smuggling poison to kill our people and to kill our children. Savage killers, rapists, and violent criminals are being released from jail to continue their crime wave, and under Biden, the murder rate has reached the highest in the history of our country. Biden and the radical Democrats have wasted trillions of dollars and caused the worst inflation in half a century.
Pretty good response from Trump there, a State of the Union response. There was also Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who gave the official GOP response, but that was Trump, kind of unofficial but still pretty official response to the State of the Union address. I'm seeing something unfold here, Clay, where Trump scripted the official Trump scripted on policy. I see it and I think to myself, on point, making the case, I like it. Trump off script attacks on other Republicans, whether it's the Youngkin thing before the midterm election and now this thing with DeSantis. Look, I don't care who it is. If I get the sense that someone's trying to Kavanaugh somebody by making allegations about sexual impropriety in their past that there's zero evidence for and that's just meant to smear, I despise that. I get angry about that. And so, look, maybe Trump is just, he's throwing a little bit of a kidney shot here at DeSantis, but playing super dirty on the right, I think that's going to backfire.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that stand out about it. One, Trump won in 2016 by attacking and insulting his rivals, but he was the outsider. And it's a lot easier to attack as the outsider than as the president of the United States who's trying to become the president of the United States again. To me, Trump should be, and look, everybody's got different advice, but if I were advising Trump, I would say you should be the presidential guy. You should be the person saying, I'm going to be the nominee. I'm ready on day one. These other whippersnappers are not prepared like I am. I will kick Biden's ass in this election. That's the argument for Trump that I think plays. To me, DeSantis, on the flip side, like if you're the coach and you're the campaign advisor and you're looking at it, the person, and I hinted at this as we went to break, the person that has done the best job handling Trump in the entire Republican Party is Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is won by almost 8 points re-election against Stacey Abrams. Trump tried to get somebody to run against him. Brian Kemp beat that guy by 50 points, right? It wasn't even close.
The Trump supporters, I think, would say, though, Clay, true in Georgia, for sure.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a nationwide contest now, right? So would that work the same way?
Yeah, I think so. Sonny Perdue was Trump's handpicked successor, right? In Georgia, which is a battleground state. What Brian Kemp said every time was, he's mad at me. I'm not mad at him. I'm focused on trying to beat Stacey Abrams and be the best governor that I can in Georgia. To me, if I'm advising DeSantis, Trump, rise above it all. Don't go after him. You are the presumptive leader right now. You bring yourself down when you come on these attacks. If I'm DeSantis, I say, look, Trump's mad at me. I don't know why he's mad at me. That's his issue. I'm not mad at him. I want to focus on being governor of Florida, and I want to kick Joe Biden's ass. I think that's a compelling argument.
No, I agree with you. And I think that Trump, as elder statesman and almost in my mind, his approach to this should be, guys, of course it's going to be me. And I'm the only one who can win. And I'm not looking to wound or destroy the next generation of Republican leadership that will be, no matter what, necessary. I'm looking to be the guy who can win this fight now against Joe Biden. I'm the one you want in that ring. I'm the one you want to be doing it. To your point, 2016 was different. 2016 was Trump fight. He was the outsider fighting his way in, and he played rough with people, but it's different when you've been president. It really is. It's different. It's not the same look. You're not the outsider breaking your way into the door the first time around. We got a bunch of callers who want to weigh in on this one. 800-282-2882. We've got David up in Wisconsin, voted for Trump twice. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to speak directly to Mr. Trump. If he's not listening as people are, I voted for you twice. So did every one of my conservative friends. After this latest disgusting broadside that you've leveled at DeSantis, even if you are the GOP nominee going forward, under no circumstances will I vote for you. And that's a consensus among everyone that I speak to politically, all my friends. If you can't stand there like a man on your own record and run for the GOP nomination without destroying, like Buck said, the next generation coming up, then you're disgusting in my book.
Wow.
I'm done. I was never a never Trumper. Never.
Okay, David, I appreciate the call. I do not vote at all because, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Buck and I have said this for a long time. Whoever the Republican nominee is in 2024, we're going to vote for. It's going to be a nasty internecine family battle right now. But, David, in Superior, Wisconsin's a swing state. What would you do if Trump and Biden were running against each other in 24? You're saying you wouldn't pull the lever for Trump?
He's gone. Okay.
I mean, my point would be, look, I understand if you get frustrated with either Trump or DeSantis or Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo or Mike Pence or whoever's running. I don't want it to get to the point where you're like, I won't support whoever the Republican nominee is.
You express that frustration, in my mind, with your primary vote.
Yes.
That's how you express that frustration, because we know what the we know what the stakes are here. We know what this Democrat Party is capable of. You saw what they were talking about last night. The damage is just beginning with Joe Biden. If you give him 4 more years, remember, I keep saying it, it's not about Biden getting 4 more years. It is Democrat control. It is the system around. Ralph in Colorado also says he voted for Trump twice. Ralph, what are your thoughts?
Well, Buck, first thing I want to say, you got the OSS here. I've been listening to you since day one.
Clay, can I just say that's
Clay,
when someone says OSS, and it's Original Saturday Squad, because I began a radio show. It was actually a stream on Saturdays for 3 hours, and I started at 0 and grew an audience from 0, and people have been with me now for 12 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what OSS is. It's also Office of Strategic Services, but yeah. Thank you, sir. So what are your thoughts, Ralph? I appreciate you a lot.
Well, I voted for Trump twice, and since he's announced and the things that he said with, the vaccine and the way he's attacking, DeSantis, which I think is doing one heck of a job down there in Florida. I tend to not to want to vote for him. If he becomes the, presumptive nominee, I'm going to vote for him. But otherwise, I'm going to vote for.
It sounds like he's frustrated.
Yeah, Ralph, for you, what would you tell Trump? I thought that the call from, who did we just hear from? David in Wisconsin was interesting, because there are a lot of Trump people in the administration who listen on a day-to-day basis. What would you tell Trump that you would want to hear from him as he is running for 2024 that you're not hearing now?
I want to hear what he had in 2016. I want him to hear the people. I want him to, do what he did in his, presidency.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you for calling in. I mean, that's, and OSS, Shields High. I got to say, this is what I'm hearing. I haven't really heard anything else recent. Look, if there's somebody out there, and I want to be clear, we're taking calls as they come in here, and the lines are lit up usually the whole show on different issues, but we're just taking them as they're, because we're racking and stacking right now. So, I know this is contentious. I know there are people with very different feelings in this audience, and we want to hear the different. We want to give voice to you who have different opinions. You, our beloved audience, on this whole range of how you feel about the Trump DeSantis showdown, because it is going to happen. So with that in mind, Clay, why don't we 800-282-2882 is the lines. We'll come back here. We'll close it out. If we got somebody who feels like, I don't care what Trump does, it can only be Trump, and that's how you feel, let us know. Because we're hearing from some people that obviously feel like the DeSantis attack, the most recent one, that's not what they want to see from a person they voted for twice and gave really their whole heart in support of. From our friends at the preborn pregnancy clinics, a true and sincere thank you for all your generous donations. Since we first started speaking of this group, you've been so supportive of the mission, and you understand why. You are the pro-life community. Your actions matter. You can save lives. Preborn is not a new organization, but the fight right now is new and rejuvenated to protect life. Preborn is an advocate of the unborn children in this nation. They offer care and compassion to pregnant mothers who are facing that very difficult decision because of all the influences in society and all the radical left organizations that are saying, oh, it's about convenience. Don't worry about that baby. No, Preborn is here to create that connection between mother and baby so that she will bring that baby into this world. And the way they do this, the most effective single thing they can do, is the gift of an ultrasound experience, totally free for that mother. Because most of the time when a mother meets her unborn child via an ultrasound, she chooses life. To date, more than 200,000 babies have been born into this world. 200,000, over that number, because of the experience of an ultrasound. And then the decision becomes so much easier for the mom to choose life because she knows that's a baby. Every day, about 150 children are born as a result of Preborn's efforts. So please give real thought to making that donation today of $28, which is the cost of just one ultrasound, or a larger gift if you can afford to. Remember, it is tax deductible. So if you have the kind of money right now, I know times are tough, if you have the money to sponsor an ultrasound machine, that would be a game changer and save so many lives. So whatever you can give, please consider it today. Dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the word baby. That's pound 250 and just say the word baby. You'll be connected with somebody at Preborn right away. Remember, it's tax deductible. It's a tax deductible donation, and you're saving lives. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby, or I donate at the website because I find it very convenient, preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK, sponsored by Preborn. Welcome back to Clay and Buck. We're going to be closing up shop here, and I'm going to be heading off to the South Pacific. So I'll be thinking of all of you, I promise.
You got an early morning flight tomorrow. So when we sign off here in like 10 minutes, are you just going completely dark? You turning off the phone? Like, what's the plan here for the honeymoon?
There'll be some things in the podcast feed that we're recording. So those will go out next week. So people should definitely look for those. Some great new interviews on the Clay and Buck podcast feed or the Buck Sexton show feed. But honestly, you're listening. Either one of them works now. We're using them as ways to share content with all of you. I'm no tweeting. I'm gonna go as off the grid as I can. So that's the move, because I just find, man, I really don't like it when I get that jolt of where's my phone. When you have the where's my phone feeling, I got to try to.
When was it, by the way, that you went on vacation and ended up trending for was it Asheville, or was it like, what was
it's funny you bring that up, because that's why I have the no tweeting rule. It was Asheville. I was just walking around downtown Asheville, and there were mask lunatics. I mean, there were mask required stores still. This was like summer of 2022. And this was late in the whole thing. Masks required. It's a beautiful summer. It was 4th of July weekend. Well, and,
I remember that,
some like fitness influencer moron who was like, I can deadlift 300 pounds and I wear a mask. I'm like, oh, congratulations, buddy.
And you spent the whole 4th of July trending for your opinions.
He was sad. He was like, oh, I'm sorry, somebody who's never done any interesting in their life. I'm like, I don't know. I was like at a couple of war zones, CIA, now host the biggest radio show in the country with my man Clay Travis. Like, I think I've done a few interesting things. But anyway, that trended nationally. Like the Charlotte Observer wrote it up. It turned into a whole thing. All I said, just to be clear, was, wow, there are a lot of people wearing masks here. I didn't like slam anybody. It was like real gentle stuff. But that's why I know, because then I was like fielding, texts from people like, oh, did you see this? And it turned into no Twitter while I'm gone.
You don't want to trend on the honeymoon.
I do not want to trend on the honeymoon. Speaking of honeymoons, I'll be with my wife. It's fun to say, Carrie. We have another Carrie, though, in Port Richey, Florida, who called in to talk to us, Clay. Let's see what she has to say. What's going on? Great name.
Hey, this is Carrie from Florida, and I love Trump. I voted for Trump twice. My whole house is decked out in Trump. My car, I have wardrobes, everything. I am a Trump-loving fool. But I also love my DeSantis. My DeSantis is the best governor in the world, in my opinion. And I just think Trump needs to get on board with DeSantis. Here in Florida, you can't go a mile down the road without seeing a bumper sticker that says Trump DeSantis. I mean, that is the dream team for us. And I just would hate to see Trump lose in the primaries, Florida, because he's fighting with DeSantis. They just need to get on board and work together. We need to take our country back. We need to beat these Democrats. We got to fight with everything we got, and we don't need to be fighting against each other.
I think there's a lot. Thank you for the call, Carrie. I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. And, again, DeSantis is basically saying, I have not seen, tell me if I'm wrong, Buck, I have not seen DeSantis criticize Trump at all. I haven't seen him come out, certainly not insult him in, kind of a really aggressive way. The closest thing I've seen was the comment when he said, hey, people of Florida chose to reelect me. Basically kind of pointing out that Trump wasn't reelected.
And I'll also say in 2016, people went after Trump pretty aggressively. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Republicans. They were saying he was a vulgarian and he was, 4 wives or 3 wives or whatever. And, people were giving Trump the rough stuff, too. It was not a one-way street. DeSantis hasn't done any of that.
Yep.
And using the term groomer anywhere near Ron DeSantis, that's just not going to fly. It's just not okay. I don't know what else to say. It's just, that's not going to work.
Lindsay in Colorado, what you got for us? Lindsay,
you're on air. A few
not
million
vote
people
for
listening.
him.
What's going on? Yep.
What's that?
You're on the radio show with millions listening. What are your
I
thoughts?
couldn't hear you. I will not vote for Trump a third time. No way. I don't want him to get the nomination. It's time to go in a new direction. He is still living in the past. He has not changed. He has not learned one thing from what happened to him, and he's not the future of the party, and I think he needs I don't want him to get the nomination.
I mean, it's and look. Can I ask our
Thank you
our
for the
team?
call, yeah.
Thank you so much. Lindsay's got some passion there. Can I ask our team real quick, guys? Are we getting, because we're running out of time here? We were out of time actually. Did we get a bunch of "I'm Trump no matter what" calls in too, or did we just rack and stack and this is what we had?
They said no.
This is that.
Nobody
just to
called
be
in.
clear with everybody, we played the calls in order as they came in there, and we played every one that we had time for. So, Clay, I mean, the people are speaking to us.
Look, it's February. The Iowa caucus is January. We're going to have basically 10, 11 months, I think, of Trump versus DeSantis. So people are going to get their opportunity to weigh in on what they think and whether you like it or not. Last year was midterm year. We're all on the same team. The primary is going to be nasty, and I think it's primarily going to be nasty between Trump and DeSantis. And so far, Buck, it looks like Trump is going after DeSantis way more than vice versa.
Clay's in charge all next week. Everybody behave while I'm gone. See you soon.